So, Mary, thank you for agreeing to talk with me.
Okay.
I always think it's important that we get the consent of the people we speak to. But I understand that you have some difficulties that you'd like to talk through. Something to do with your sense of responsibility, your decisions that you make, and the choices that other people might make as a result of that. But that's really all I know. So, can you tell me a bit more?
Yeah, sure. It is really around my feelings of anxiety when making decisions, but also around the impact that I feel I have on others. Um, and I do worry from time to time, quite often actually, that my impact could be negative. Um,
Could you?
even,
Sorry, go on.
sorry, no, even small things or things that maybe others might consider small or having minimum impact, sometimes I feel may cause others distress or something. I do worry about those sorts of thoughts and feelings.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
um well, sometimes the things that I say to people, I often worry about consequences of words. I think we all know the expression about you know words can be more harmful than certain things. I think what worries me is that things that you say sometimes can be misconstrued as well. And I tend to ponder and ruminate about things after I've said them to people
Right.
and think, will they see that this way? Will it hurt that person? That kind of problem.
Okay. I mean, I think there's a couple of things to unpick in that. The first one is this idea that words can hurt, and I'm not saying that they can't, but I think it's worth establishing exactly how that works.
Mm.
And then we can move on maybe to the idea of how people will construe what you say. But first of
Yeah.
all, how do words hurt?
Well, when you put it like that, I'd say maybe. I think perhaps my thought on it is that words can have power behind them, but I suppose that depends on other people's experiences as well. So I don't know what someone else has been through when I say something to them. So certain words might have an impact on them, whereas it wouldn't on another person. But I don't know. That's the thing. It's the not knowing factor of what their
Right.
life's like, so they might take it the wrong way.
Okay, so if someone that you don't know is hurt by something that you unknowingly said,
Mm.
is that your fault?
I think I've asked this question of some people before, to see what they think, because I think, in my opinion, at times my feelings of guilt get tied up with this feeling of responsibility,
Mm.
and I do sometimes feel that things are my fault, perhaps when they're not,
Mm.
when maybe other people would think that they're not my fault. And I do apologise a lot for things that maybe aren't considered my fault, but
Okay,
they feel like they are. So,
okay. We might move on to that, but I want to
mm,
stick with this idea about people being hurt by your words.
mm, mm-hmm.
So let's flip it round.
Yeah,
Let's think about it from the point of view of the person who is hurt. And let's imagine, say, that that person has been offended
okay.
by what you said. What does it mean to be offended?
I guess it's similar to being feeling that you've like an insult to somebody. Maybe they feel quite hurt by something that somebody said, or they express that they feel hurt
Right.
by something that somebody said.
So, now we've already said that the words themselves don't have any particular power.
Mm-hmm.
So if they feel hurt,
Yeah.
where is that emotional power coming from?
It's a tricky one. I guess it must be from their interpretation and
Okay.
their own emotional state.
So the power to hurt them comes from them. Is that what you're saying?
When you unpick it like that, yes, I suppose it is
Okay.
what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I think you're
Mhm.
right.
Mm.
But I don't think we can leave it there, because to leave it just there actually is quite callous, and it ignores other bits of this equation.
Yeah.
Like, why does a person become offended?
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to say they're doing it to themselves, but it's another to wonder, why would anybody do that to themselves?
Yeah.
So, why do people become offended?
I would think there's probably, or they would describe many reasons. Perhaps they've had bad experiences and they've attributed it to that. Or they may attribute it to several different reasons.
Yeah,
But
I'm going to stop you, forgive me.
yeah, it's
I'm not
okay.
asking what excuses people will give for being offended. I'm asking why they're offended, not what they tell you is the reason.
Well, we're all responsible for our own feelings and thought, I would think.
Mhm.
Because, so I would think it's their choice in a way. Maybe they feel they have limited choice, but they're still choosing to be feeling that, well,
I think the problem with that is you can't exercise a choice unless you understand that it's a choice.
yeah.
And many people get offended because they don't think they've got any choice but to feel offended.
Yes, that's a better
So
way of
I'm
saying
not sure that it's fair to then say, oh, well, you chose it.
no.
Because actually, if people don't understand that they can choose to react differently.
Mm.
Can I tell you what I think?
Yeah, yeah.
And you see what, if it works for you.
Okay.
I think that whatever you said, let's say that you were laughing at me because I wear glasses. Forget the fact that you wear glasses as well. And I got offended by that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be me getting offended because you said something intended to hurt me.
Okay.
Now, yesterday, I was quite happy.
Mm.
I knew yesterday that there are people in the world who say things intending to hurt other people.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me yesterday.
Mm.
All that's changed today is I've met one of those people.
Yeah.
But the world hasn't changed. I haven't changed. They haven't changed. Nothing has changed except the way that I feel about exactly the same situation
Mm.
as yesterday. There are people in the world who say things about glasses to hurt other people, and I just happen to have met one.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Now, when you think about it like that, is there any reason for me to be offended?
When you think about it in that way, I suppose you're acknowledging that it's happening all around the world anyway. So really, your little part of it, it's not really worth getting offended about if it's happening around anyway, and
Quite.
yeah, or the fact that somebody might feel offended by something you've said. Yeah, I see what you mean. It does make sense that, yeah, yeah.
So when you were talking earlier about how it's someone's choice whether they're offended or not,
Mm.
I agree, but we said that bit about, well, I said that bit, I suppose, about it's not really a choice if people don't know that they've got a choice.
Yes. Yeah, I guess that's a bit like education. If
Well,
people
yeah, but
aren't.
once people understand
Mm,
that they don't have to be offended about a situation that they weren't bothered about yesterday and won't care about tomorrow either,
mm, yeah.
then people can start to choose whether they're offended or not.
Mm, yeah.
Now let's go back to what you said about you feeling responsible for somebody else being offended even though you didn't know that it would be something they would find offensive. How much of this is down to you?
Based on what we've said here, I would think not much really. Not well.
Right,
Not yeah.
so here's the kicker.
Mm,
Why do you feel the need to feel guilty about it?
because I'm giving it too much importance when it's sort of in my life when it's happening anyway. It's something that's I'm yeah, I guess I'm sort of still choosing, but I wasn't aware really before. If I have that awareness that it's a choice now, then it may be easier to go forward and not make the same error in the future.
Yeah, because the whole thing about taking on the guilt is also a choice.
Mm, yeah, and it doesn't feel like that sometimes when you're in the midst of
No,
it.
it doesn't.
Because you can get really, you can't see the wood for the trees. But then talking logically like this, it does make sense, that it's a choice. It's just when you're in the midst of that anxiety and it feels overpowering, it's hard to separate that. But this is, yeah, I'd agree that there is a choice there. Yeah.
So, this is TAMtalking, this is traditional and modern. I want to give you a little bit of ancient philosophy.
Yeah.
And this comes from Marcus Aurelius,
Okay.
who was a 1st century Stoic. He was also a Roman emperor, so quite a guy. Marcus Aurelius talked about situations where you meet people who are in various ways unpleasant, including the people who may decide they're going to have a go at you because you've said the wrong thing, you've offended them, although we now know, well, if you didn't know that it was going to be offensive, you didn't mean it, it isn't really fair to have a go at you for it. Marcus Aurelius has 2 things that he said you mustn't do in those situations. The first one is to be the best you that you can be. And the second is to be grateful that you're not them. But that wasn't just a dig.
No.
He actually was a very compassionate man. For a Roman emperor, he was mercy itself. He was a very compassionate man. But what he said was, the person who does not understand that they don't need to get upset and they don't need to cause conflict is miserable throughout their life. That's why you're grateful you're not them, because you're not miserable.
Yeah.
And you know you have a choice.
So it's that understanding that you don't have to be miserable like that, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's not gloating about the other people, but it's like, yeah, I see where you're coming from there, yeah, and where he was, what he
Okay.
meant, yeah.
So that is your thing to take forward, if you like. Because none of this is any good at all unless you put it into practice.
Yeah.
So the next time you are in any situation, either where someone's having a go at you, or where you think you might have offended someone and you're thinking about throwing guilt at yourself,
Yeah.
there are 2 things to do. One is be the best version of you that you can be, and that is not the guilt catcher, because that doesn't make you a good you, that makes you an ineffective you. And the second is to be grateful that you're not them. because that will remind you about this conversation about taking offence is only something people do if they don't know any better.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not to blame them. If you don't know any better, you can't make a better choice. But really, taking offence is irrational.
Yeah, I like that because it's like turning a negative into a positive as well. Not catching the guilt and instead saying that you want to, be the best version of yourself that you can
Yeah,
be, rather than focusing on the negative. That sounds positive.
absolutely. But it can sound as positive as you like. You have to practice it to make it a habit.
Yeah.
And until you've practiced it and made it a habit, it won't work. And after a while, you'll think, well, that was rubbish. So you must practice. If you don't, you'll go nowhere with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds like a good way forward to me.
Okay. And next time, we'll review how you did with that. And we'll maybe look at some other little principles.